Before we begin, if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button and smash the like button. It helps the channel more than you know. And when we are done, I want you to comment below where you are watching from, your city, state, or country. Now imagine this. You are lying in a frozen ditch, 30 yards ahead of your own lines. 6 German Tiger tanks are rolling straight toward you. Infantry is closing in from all sides. You have one decision left. You can run, or you can pick up the radio and call artillery fire directly onto your own position. What would you do? This is the true story of 1st Lieutenant Garland Merl Connor and what he did on January 24, 1945, when that exact choice came for him. The cold came first, not the kind of cold that made you shiver, the kind that turned your fingers into wooden sticks, that made your jaw clench until your teeth hurt, that crept through wool and canvas and leather until it sat inside your bones and would not leave. 1st Lieutenant Garland Merl Connor had been cold for 18 days. Everyone in 3rd Battalion, 7th Infantry Regiment had been cold for 18 days. They had been on the line in eastern France since the first week of January, dug into positions south of Houston, and the winter of 1945 was not a winter that forgave anything. Connor stood inside the battalion command post, a half-collapsed stone building that smelled like wet stone and tobacco and sweat. The walls were thick, but the cold did not care. It came through the cracks, it pooled on the floor, it turned breath into fog. Outside, the sky was the color of concrete, low and heavy, and snow covered everything. The trees were black skeletons. The ground was iron. Connor was 24 years old. He was from Kentucky. He had a thin face, sharp eyes, and the kind of stillness that made people trust him without knowing why. He did not talk much. He did not need to. When he gave an order, it was clear. When he moved, it was deliberate. He had been in Europe since Normandy. He had seen men die in hedgerows and river crossings and frozen fields, and every time it happened, a small part of him went somewhere else, somewhere he could not reach anymore. But he was still here, still alive, still responsible. The German 19th Army was out there, somewhere in the white morning haze. Intelligence said they were preparing something, a counterattack, 600 infantry, armor, probably Tiger tanks. The forward observation post, the one that had been calling in artillery for the past 2 weeks, had been destroyed during the night. A direct hit. The men inside were gone. That meant 3rd Battalion was blind. That meant if the Germans came, no one would see them until it was too late. Connor looked at the map spread across the wooden table. The battalion commander, a man named Major Hansen, stood beside him. Hansen was older, graying at the temples, and his hands shook slightly when he held his coffee. Not from fear, from exhaustion. Everyone was exhausted. "We need eyes forward," Hansen said. His voice was flat. "If they hit us without artillery support, we will not hold." Connor nodded. He did not say anything yet. He was thinking. "The observation post is gone," Hansen continued. "We need someone out there, someone who can call fire." Connor looked at the map. The American line was marked in blue pencil. The German positions, or what they thought were German positions, were marked in red. Between them was 400 yards of open ground, snow, frozen mud, a few scattered trees, no cover. "I will go," Connor said. Hansen looked at him. "You are the battalion forward observer. If you go down, we have no one else trained to coordinate fire. If I do not go, we have no one out there at all." Hansen was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "Take someone with you, and take wire. If the radio fails, I want a hard line back to this post." Connor nodded. He turned and walked out of the command post into the cold. The man who went with him was Private First Class John Rossini. Rossini was 19. He was from New Jersey. He had a round face and nervous hands, and he followed Connor because Connor had kept him alive for 6 months. Rossini carried the telephone wire. Connor carried the radio, binoculars, and a map case. They each had a rifle. Connor had a sidearm. They did not have much else. They moved out at 7 in the morning. The light was gray and thin. Visibility was maybe 300 yards less when the wind picked up and blew snow across the ground. Connor led. Rossini followed, unspooling wire as they went. Every 50 yards, Rossini stopped and anchored the wire to a tree or a rock or whatever he could find. If it broke, they would lose communication. If they lost communication, they were alone. The ground was uneven. Snow hid roots and stones and shell craters. Connor moved carefully, watching the tree line ahead, watching the horizon, watching for movement. There was no sound except the wind and the crunch of snow under their boots. Somewhere far off, artillery rumbled. Not close. Not yet. They crossed 200 yards, then 300. Connor could feel the distance growing behind him, the safety of the American line falling away. Ahead, the ground sloped down into a shallow ditch that ran parallel to the German positions. It was not much, maybe 2 feet deep, but it was all there was. They were 50 yards from the ditch when the first shell hit. It came in with a sound like a train tearing itself apart, a shriek that climbed and climbed until it stopped, and then the ground erupted. The shockwave hit Connor like a fist. He went down hard, face in the snow, ears ringing. Rossini was yelling something, but Connor could not hear him. He pushed himself up, snow falling from his coat, and looked back. Rossini was on his knees, hands over his head. The wire was still in his hand. Another shell, this one closer. The explosion lifted snow and dirt and frozen mud into the air, and when it came down, it pelted them like stones. Connor grabbed Rossini by the shoulder and pulled him forward. They ran, not fast. The ground would not let them run fast, but they ran. 2 more shells, then 3. The Germans had seen them, or guessed, or gotten lucky. It did not matter. Connor and Rossini reached the ditch and threw themselves in, landing hard on frozen earth. Connor felt something crack in his ribs, maybe it was just the impact, but he did not have time to think about it. He pressed his face into the dirt and waited. The shelling stopped. Silence, not real silence. The wind, the ringing in his ears, his own breath fast and shallow. Rossini was next to him, panting, eyes wide. Connor looked at him. "You hurt?" Rossini shook his head. "Wire intact?" Rossini pulled on it. It held. "Yes." Connor nodded. He set up the radio. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from cold, from adrenaline. He pulled off his gloves, and the cold hit his skin immediately, sharp and cruel. He worked fast, antenna up, frequency set. He pressed the handset to his ear. Static, then a voice, faint but there. "Thunder 6, this is Anvil 1, over." Connor exhaled. "Anvil 1, this is Thunder 6. I am in position, 400 yards forward of battalion line. Do you copy?" "Copy, Thunder 6. Send traffic." Connor raised the binoculars and looked east. The German infantry came at 7:45. They did not come all at once. They came in groups, 30 men here, 40 men there. Moving low through the snow, using the trees for cover, spread out in a skirmish line that stretched nearly half a mile. Connor counted at least 200 in the first wave. Behind them, barely visible through the haze, he saw the tanks. Tigers, 6 of them. Massive, angular, painted in winter camouflage. They moved slowly, engines growling, treads chewing through the snow. Each one weighed 56 tons. Each one carried an 88mm gun that could punch through any American tank at 1,000 yards. They were not coming to probe. They were coming to break through. Connor keyed the radio. "Anvil 1, this is Thunder 6. Enemy infantry in the open. Grid 479er 236. Estimate 200 personnel. Request fire mission. The voice on the other end was calm, professional. Thunder 6 copy, fire mission. Grid 479er 236, infantry in the open, high explosive, stand by. Connor waited. Rossini pressed himself into the ditch beside him, rifle clutched to his chest. The German infantry kept coming, 200 yards out now. Connor could see their breath in the air, white puffs above their heads. He could see the way they moved, hunched and deliberate, rifles ready. 30 seconds passed. Then a sound, distant and high, like wind through a narrow gap. The shells were coming. Shot out, the radio said. Connor pressed the binoculars to his eyes. He did not blink. The first volley hit at 7:48. 6 shells, 105 mm high explosive. They came down in a line across the German advance. The explosions were sharp and bright, white flashes against the gray morning. Snow and dirt flew into the air. Men disappeared. When the smoke cleared, there were gaps in the German line. But they kept coming. Connor adjusted the fire. Anvil 1, drop 50, left 20, repeat. Copy, drop 50, left 20. The next volley came in 15 seconds later, closer this time, right on top of them. Connor saw men go down, saw them scatter, saw the advance slow. But it did not stop. The Tigers kept rolling forward, shells bouncing off their armor when American guns tried to engage them from the battalion line. The Tigers did not stop. Connor called in another mission, then another. The artillery battery was firing as fast as they could load. Shell after shell screamed overhead, punching into the German line, tearing gaps, throwing bodies. But for every man who fell, another kept moving. They were disciplined. They were experienced. They were coming to kill everyone in 3rd Battalion, and they knew it. By 8:15, the Germans were 100 yards out. Connor could hear them now. Voices. Orders shouted in German, the crack of rifles, the deep metallic groan of the Tiger engines. Rossini was shaking, not just from cold, from fear. Connor did not blame him. He was afraid too. He just did not show it. He called in another mission, closer this time, 75 yards. The shells came down and the concussion rattled his teeth. Dirt rained into the ditch. A piece of shrapnel hissed past his head and buried itself in the snow behind him. Too close, but it worked. The German infantry pulled back, regrouping behind the tanks. The Tigers did not pull back. They kept coming, slow, relentless. Machines that did not care about artillery, that did not care about fear, that existed only to crush and kill. Connor watched them through the binoculars. He could see the commanders in the cupolas, heads exposed, scanning for targets. He could see the barrel of the 88 swinging left and right, looking for something to destroy. 50 yards. Connor keyed the radio. Anvil 1, enemy armor advancing. Grid 477238, request armor piercing. Thunder 6, we do not have armor piercing loaded. High explosive only. Connor closed his eyes. High explosive would not stop a Tiger. It would scratch the paint. That was all. Copy, he said. Send high explosive, air bursts if possible, target infantry following the armor. Roger, stand by. The shells came in high this time, detonating in the air above the German line. Shrapnel sleeted down, scything through the infantry. Men fell, screaming. Connor heard the screaming even over the explosions, but the Tigers kept coming. 40 yards. Rossini grabbed Connor's arm. We need to pull back. Connor did not answer. He was calculating. The Tigers were 35 yards out. If they got to the American line, they would roll straight through. 3rd Battalion would collapse. Hundreds of men would die. The entire sector would fold. The Germans would push through to the supply lines, maybe to the river. It would be a disaster. He could call fire closer, danger close, 10 yards, 5 yards, but if he did that the shells would kill him and Rossini. No question, they were in a ditch 2 feet deep. There was nowhere to hide. 30 yards. Connor looked at Rossini. Rossini was staring at him, waiting. Thunder 6, this is Anvil 1. Advise your position. Enemy is closing on friendly lines. Connor pressed the handset to his lips. His mouth was dry. His heart was hammering in his chest, fast and hard, and for a moment he could not breathe. He thought about Kentucky. He thought about his mother. He thought about the men in 3rd Battalion, the men who were counting on him, who did not even know his name, who would die if he ran. He keyed the radio. Anvil 1, this is Thunder 6, fire mission. Grid 476239, danger close. I say again, danger close. A pause, then, Thunder 6, confirm grid, that is on your position. Confirmed, fire on my position. Another pause, longer this time. Connor could hear the shock in the silence. Then the voice came back tight and professional. Roger, Thunder 6, fire mission. Grid 476239, high explosive, shot out. Connor dropped the handset. He grabbed Rossini and pulled him down into the ditch as far as they could go, pressing their bodies into the frozen earth, arms over their heads. Rossini was saying something, maybe praying, maybe cursing. Connor could not tell. He heard the shells coming. It was not a sound. It was a feeling, a pressure in the air, a vibration in the ground, something that lived in his chest and his skull and his bones. The world held its breath. The first shell hit 10 yards in front of the ditch. The explosion was not loud. It was beyond loud. It was the end of sound, the point where noise became something physical, something that crushed and tore. The shockwave lifted Connor off the ground and slammed him back down. His vision went white. His ears stopped working. There was only pressure, immense and terrible, and heat, and the sensation of the earth trying to tear itself apart. Another shell. Another. The artillery battery was firing for effect, 6 guns, rapid fire, walking the shells back and forth across the grid Connor had given them. The ditch shook. Dirt and snow collapsed on top of them. Connor could not breathe. He opened his mouth and dirt filled it. He spat it out and tried to suck in air, but there was no air, only smoke and dust and the taste of explosives. Something hit his leg, hard. A piece of shrapnel maybe, or a rock thrown by the blast. Pain shot up his thighs, sharp and bright. He did not scream. He did not have the air to scream. He just pressed his face into the ground and waited. The shelling went on forever, or maybe it was 30 seconds. Connor could not tell. Time had stopped meaning anything. There was only the next explosion, and the next, and the next, each one a hammer that tried to break him. And then it stopped. Silence, real silence this time. No wind, no engines, no voices. Connor lay in the ditch, ears ringing, blood in his mouth, and did not move. He was afraid that if he moved, he would find out he was dead. Rossini moved first. He lifted his head, slow, cautious. His face was gray with dust. Blood ran from his nose. He looked at Connor. "Are you alive?" His voice was distant, muffled, like he was speaking underwater. Connor nodded. He tried to sit up. His legs screamed at him and he looked down. His trousers were torn. Blood soaked the fabric, dark and wet. Shrapnel, not deep. He had been lucky. Rossini had a gash across his forehead, bleeding freely, but he was moving. He was alive. Connor grabbed the binoculars. They were cracked. One lens shattered, but the other still worked. He raised them and looked. The tigers were stopped. 2 were burning. Black smoke poured from their hatches, thick and oily. One had thrown a tread and sat motionless, listing to one side. Another was trying to reverse, engine whining, but it was stuck in a crater. The last two were pulling back, retreating into the tree line, abandoning the attack. The infantry was gone, dead or scattered or running. The ground between the ditch and the German positions was a wasteland. Craters, bodies, smoke. Nothing moved. Connor lowered the binoculars. He keyed the radio with shaking hands. Anvil 1, this is Thunder 6. Fire mission complete. Enemy armor destroyed or retreating. Infantry broken. Sector is clear. The voice on the other end sounded relieved, almost human. Roger, Thunder 6, good shooting. Are you mobile? Connor looked at his leg. Affirmative, returning to friendly lines. He and Rossini climbed out of the ditch. It took effort. Everything hurt. Connor's leg barely held his weight, and Rossini had to help him. They moved slow, limping back across the 400 yards they had crossed that morning. The wire trailed behind them, torn and useless now. The snow was red in places. Connor did not look at the bodies. He did not need to. They reached the American line at 9:30. Soldiers came out to meet them, pulling them into cover, asking questions. Connor did not answer. He let them take the radio, let them bandage his leg, let them sit him down in the command post. Major Hansen stood over him, staring. You called fire on your own position. Connor nodded. You could have died. Connor looked up at him. If I had not, we all would have. Hansen did not say anything. He just put a hand on Connor's shoulder, squeezed once and walked away. The German counterattack did not come again. 19th Army pulled back, regrouping, licking their wounds. 6 Tiger tanks lost. Hundreds of infantry dead or wounded. 3rd Battalion held. The line held. The sector held. Connor was sent to the rear for medical treatment. Shrapnel in the leg. Minor concussion. He was back on the line in 4 days. Weeks later, someone put him in for a medal, the Distinguished Service Cross. Connor did not attend the ceremony. He did not like ceremonies. The medal went into a drawer, and he did not think about it much. The war ended in May. Connor went home to Kentucky. He did not talk about France. He did not talk about the ditch or the Tigers or the sound the shells made when they came down on his position. People asked sometimes what he did in the war. He said he was an artillery observer. That was all. He got married. He worked. He lived a quiet life, the kind of life where nothing exploded and no one died and the only cold was winter cold, the kind you could fix with a coat and a fire. He was fine with that. Decades passed. In 1998, someone reviewed his service record. They looked at the Distinguished Service Cross citation. They looked at the after-action reports from January 24, 1945. They realized what he had done, what he had really done. The Distinguished Service Cross was upgraded to the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration the United States awards. Connor was 77 years old when they told him. He accepted it quietly. He did not make a speech. He shook hands, posed for photographs, and went home. He died in 2003 at the age of 82. The obituaries called him a hero. They talked about the ditch and the Tigers and the artillery fire that saved 3rd Battalion. They made it sound clean, simple, like it was something that happened to someone else. But Connor knew the truth. It was not clean, it was not simple. It was 3 hours in a frozen ditch, surrounded by men who wanted to kill him, watching tanks roll closer, knowing that every second he waited was another second closer to death. It was the feeling of the radio handset in his hand, the weight of the decision, the knowledge that if he made the wrong call, hundreds of men would die. It was the sound of the shells coming in, the certainty that this was the end, and the strange, cold clarity that came with accepting it. And it was the moment after, when the smoke cleared and he was still alive, and he realized that he would have to live with what he had done. Not the killing, the surviving, The fact that he had called death down on himself and it had missed him, and he did not know why. That was the part no one talked about. That was the part that stayed with him, quiet and cold, for the rest of his life. The story of First Lieutenant Garland Merl Connor is not a story about heroism, not really. It is a story about a choice that had no good options, a choice that required him to become smaller than the moment, to make himself nothing so that others could live. And he made it. In a frozen ditch under fire with tanks 30 yards away, he made it. Most people will never face a choice like that. Most people will never have to decide whether to die so that others can live. But Connor did, and he did not run. He picked up the radio and he made the call, and he lay in the dirt and waited for the shells to come. That is the story. That is what happened on January 24, 1945. That is what one man did in one ditch, in one frozen corner of France, when everything came down to a single decision. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Please hit the subscribe button if you have not already. Smash that like button. It truly helps the channel grow. I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think about Connor's decision? Could you have made that call? And please tell me where you are watching from, your city, state, or country. I love hearing from all of you around the world. Until next time, remember the stories of those who came before us. Remember what they gave. And never forget that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act anyway, even when every instinct screams at you to run. Connor made that choice. We owe it to him to remember.